Ooh, what is happening out there, all you badass mofos out there from the Black Army Radio realm? Welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to the movement, baby. We're glad to have you locked in today. And before we get into it, real quick, if this show's ever made you think, laugh, or feel some kind of way about anything, do us a solid, hit that 5-star rating right now. Just takes a few seconds, means everything to us, and make sure you're following the show so you never miss a drop. And whatever episode it is that you've been meaning to share that you think's worth a shit to a buddy, send that sucker. All right, send that sucker. All right, let's get into it. So not last week, shit, a few days ago, we did a podcast where we talked a lot about, we got into Palantir a little bit, kind of an intro into Palantir and the technology, intelligence, defense, AI kind of platform. It's not really necessarily just like an AI platform. It's kind of a hard time kind of defining what the platform is, I guess, because it's not necessarily just AI. But we're gonna get into that. Joel's gonna run down that sucker for us and run up the flagpole on that and see where we get with that one. And then whenever we're kind of done talking about that, the second half of our podcast is going to be about basically we're going to speak a lot about the scientists that have gone missing. Recently, there's been about 12 scientists that have gone missing. They've specialized in like single point plasma style energy systems, UAP stuff,
nuclear
fusion, like all kinds of like energy abundance technologies, right? That would really, really, really threaten the oil and coal and like natural gas and all that stuff industries, big time, multi-billion dollar, international institutions. We obviously fight wars over energy, and so it's a pretty freaking big deal. So when we're done with the Palantir, I'll do two little deals here to kind of know what to look forward to with that. So energy suppression. The thesis is this: commercial scale fusion, genuine reactionless propulsion. Reactionless propulsion is if you see something flying in the sky with no means of propulsion, or any other energy abundant technology would terminate the fossil fuel business model on a time scale measured in years and not decades. The present value of the global oil, gas, and coal industries in the order of tens of trillions of dollars. Okay. Entities defending that value have, in principle, both the resources and obviously the motive to act. Okay. Second one, the thesis is the UAP UFO disclosure. There exists a special access program legally compartmentalized beyond congressional reach. So compartmentalized means like sectioned off, right? That hold materials and data from non-human technology, whether they're donations or crashes. Some people call them donations. The program's continued concealment requires both information control inside the compartment and control over the adjacent to might independently reproduce, discover, or disclose the technology. So control over reproduction of the technology as well. Okay. And we'll get into, and then previous scientists from various documentaries and investigations from like Nicholas Tesla and other scientists. It's not just the local, like the last 12 in the last few years. This has been going on. I come to find out there's been a hell of a lot of inventors and scientists who have been silenced or had their shit stolen or mysteriously disappeared or all kinds of stuff. And then like their technology that their work on goes with them, right? Their super cool energy solutions disappear with them, or they take it to the grave, quite frankly, because they're not willing to open source it out to the public. And so with that being said, how are we doing today, Joel?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm a morning person. We're doing this podcast Friday morning, so I always feel a little more ready to go in the first few hours of the day. I'm one of those fucking weirdos who wakes up at 5, and so I'm doing great. Real quick, I think me and Ty are noticing with some of these shorts and the controversial ones that get put out there. You guys definitely like to react to the ones that have to do with anything social. And we highly recommend, if you catch those shorts, listen to a whole podcast, because you're getting a small bit of context of what me and Ty are saying. And And I also like there's, like Ty mentioned something about the um gays in Iran and stuff, and one, Ty's not a homophobe. He was talking from
Thanks,
experience.
Joel.
He was talking from experience of being a young man who hasn't seen anything like that, and how he saw it at the age of 22 when he went down there. And then secondly, like I like to point this out because I always think masculinity is a weird thing in America, and I think it's like masculinity is good. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, all masculinity is bad, but I think masculinity has created some really weird problems in America. And this is more about like the cult like women aren't the ones molesting kids, and not to say they don't, but a male is the one who's doing that. A male is the one raping somebody. We've created a culture that's hidden under masculinity and coming out about um there's a way to be masculine. And I think some of the masculinity in America is can be pervasive, and we've created cultures where men should take some accountability for what's going on in America. The people who are molesting the girls on the Epstein list weren't women, like, and that's when it comes into gay and masculinity, I think that's one thing, at least me personally, like all that stuff, like I think it's an obligation as a man to talk about this stuff because a lot of people don't want to talk about it or they want to point fingers. So um just a quick rant that
Yeah.
I think it starts with men and taking accountability of the rape culture and all that, And not saying every man out there is like that. I know a lot of good men with moral backbones, but this is from teaching our kids at a young age what is right and wrong,
Right.
so we don't condition these young children. And when they see the biggest scandal where they're talking about 13-year-olds and 15-year-olds getting molested, these kids have the internet too, and they're seeing these people not get prosecuted. I think it's putting a horrible message, and I
Yeah.
think it
That's
starts
really
with
the
men
point.
standing up,
Yeah.
you know?
That's the point to me for me a lot with this stuff is it's like we talk about kind of examples we set for our kids, role models and examples and whatnot for your children growing up. And it's like, what kind of example are we setting as a society where we're turning a blind eye towards overt, internationally sponsored child pedophilia, like, child rape? And it's just, and we're in a lot of ways protecting our elites from prosecution. Like while we're watching veterans, my buddy, Titty sent me an article the other day, actually last night about I guess there's been one veteran guy who is getting charged with insider trading from the Pentagon or something, and he's actually getting charged federally because he put some bets on that poly market or whatever it is for the invasion stuff and the bombing stuff
Right.
talking about the other day. And so there's a lot of people making millions and billions of dollars doing that, and they arrest some low level veteran and they're gonna make
Right.
an example out of him because
Yep.
for insider trading, which is bullshit. Like the kid shouldn't have been doing it probably. I'm sure the young man or whoever I'm not really sure about the guy's background, but it's like to make an example out of that motherfucker and be like all of the other people associated with the administration that are actually making the real money, like the real money. You know what I'm talking? The thick money.
Yeah.
Like the thick money, baby. They're not gonna be touched, dude. Just like, the
Right.
last thing was all the veterans at the National Mall that got arrested too, silently protesting in wheelchairs and canes and stuff about the Iran war, being super cool about it. Walk as soon as the cop shows up, they give them their arms, they let themselves get arrested, and they go right to the fucking squad car, like, and we're making an example out of those people. That's what we're gonna teach our kids. We're gonna teach our kids that these are the people
Well,
we make examples out of, and the people we don't make examples out of are elites that actually write the rules. We don't make examples out of them.
and and we're conditioning our society to think that what happened with the Epstein list is okay. And I know people don't think it's okay, but nothing's happened about it. And it's the same like Trump's religious advisor. He's fucking a 13-year-old and he gets 90 days in jail. Like
Yep.
that's not
Yeah, stuff
justice.
like that,
That
dude. Yep.
those are favors from the court. And there's a reason why like people don't want to come out when whether they've been molested when they're younger or they've been raped because they carry that shame because shit like this happens.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, why
these
would you
some people don't have,
yeah, if you're a victim at this point
and
you're a victim at this point and you see what's going on with all the victims, and it's like, why would you? Like, why would you put yourself out there and completely destroy your life, like, publicly or, you know what I mean, for your friends and family even, you don't have to be a public figure. But it's like that's a life-changing experience, or you internalize it and you just deal with it internally. It's like, do you wanna deal with it
well,
publicly and have nothing positive happen from it because you don't trust the society to actually go after who the real criminals are and who the real villains are because we're protecting the real criminals and the real villains? Or do you wanna just work internally? And most people are gonna work it out internally.
and I think some of that too is like it creates a cycle, like most of the people who are molested, not most, but there's a large percentage of people who are molested who are going to go on and repeat that behavior because they carry the shame. A lot of um, religion stuff like that suppresses talking about these type of things, and then they're carrying the shame, and then they go and create this particular pattern
Yeah.
where it just happens again and happens again, and
Dude,
personally,
real quick, like, my wife from her childhood, there was a pastor who was caught molesting kids, and it was just like they didn't do like the wife that was involved that wanted to divorce him because he was so high up in the church, they like excommunicated her because she divorced him, and they were protecting him. Like they didn't want her
yeah,
to expose all the different kids, like all the different stuff, and then they went after her rather than him. And when I was a kid, I went to, a private Catholic school, believe it or not, for, like, 8 years, and the original priest, father, was caught molesting boys, altar boys, typical Catholic story, right? And they didn't tell anybody anything. I didn't find out about that. I was in that school with him, with that I remember that priest. I was actually an altar boy for that priest, believe it or not. And it's like, it could have easily been me. If my dad I think I really my wife brings this up, and I think it's probably true. My dad was such like a very large 6'3", 6'4", 220 with cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, not including, I
right,
should say, cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. Very intimidating man, and that might have saved my little punk ass from, some terrible shit. But it's like I didn't find out about it. They didn't protect us. They knew that that guy was
right,
molesting kids, and they ended up doing was transferring him to a different parish, dude, in a different state, and basically gave him orders saying, "Don't do this shit again." That's it. Wasn't
right.
prosecuted, didn't tell the kids, didn't let us know to watch out for this guy, while he was still there and everything else. But yeah, dude, I mean, we're like this stuff
Well,
goes on, man. It creates
and,
own world.
and for me, just real quick, and we'll move on to the Palantir stuff. Like men in powerful positions, whether it's the church, a position of trust, are way more likely than a woman to inappropriately touch a young boy or girl. And I think like there is a lot of weirdness like within some conservative thought process where like the Grinder app goes down every time there's a Republican convention, and it's almost like the same thing that you're talking about Iran, of these people who they wouldn't consider themselves gay because it's frowned upon by society,
I
but
was
then
talking about
in the under
after.
then in yeah, and then in the underbelly of society, they're still doing it, and there's some sort of weird. Personally, and this is my personal opinion, this might offend some hardliners when it comes to social stuff. I think if you have a problem with the gay or transgender movement, you have a problem with your own masculinity or sexuality, and you're projecting your insecurities onto other people outside of the conversation of kids transitioning.
Mhm.
I think that's like the bigger underroot thing. And because if you're secure in your sexuality and masculinity, none of that should fucking matter to you, and that's how I see it.
Yeah,
But
live, let live thing, dude. Like, for me, it's all about the kid.
yeah,
Like I said, I don't care if you
right,
marry a fucking giraffe. Like, I don't care. As long as you're not telling me that I have to marry a giraffe. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right,
you do you, I'll do me. We'll be cool. We'll be good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna try to fucking make you be some kind of person, and you don't need to make me be some kind of person. And we'll be cool. Everything,
exactly.
you know?
Well, And two, we argue real quickly. We argue about things that don't have they're a ideology. They're a theory, like religion, the transgender thing. Like we argue about things where there's not an actual
There's a hard
like
measurable outcome. The measurable outcome's hard.
yes.
Like the scientific
And that's
method,
the things
measurable outcome. Yeah, different.
we argue about things that are based on theory, and the theory of why transgenders are
What's
okay,
the
then
point?
the theory of why they're not, and there's no it's a cyclical argument that you can't get out of. So
Yeah.
unless we figure out how to like deal with it as a society, like we're just gonna be fucking throwing stones at each other, you know?
Yep. And it's hard. It's like the thought police. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't
Yeah.
work. You can't control that people's feelings and thoughts. You know what I mean? And so yeah,
Right.
arguing over that stuff is just about fucking.
Well,
Yeah.
and going back to what we're talking about, arguing over that stuff lets the government do what they're doing right now,
Mhm.
because they have us so caught up in shit that really gets us riled up, but doesn't matter on an economic scale as much as some people would like to think it might.
Yeah.
And like going into Palantir, we'll just hop into that and with what's happening. And um, so Palantir, real quick, let's just get a background, a little more information on them. We gave a quick like introduction to some of the stuff they did. This will be a little more thorough. So Palantir comes from the fictional all-seeing eye in the Lord of the Rings, and it was this orb that these sorcerers would look into, and essentially they could predict the future. And which is also within that orb, and in the story of the Lord of the Rings, that orb always corrupted whoever looked into it. They thought they were altruistic and they had this power, and then that power turned into corruption, and then they became the bad figure. And I think that's kind of almost like a bad omen for a company to name it something after that. And Palantir's been around for quite a while. They've been around since the 2000s. Um, they weren't always this deep, and as technologies changed, they have changed some of the stuff they did. In their in the beginning of their career or of the company, they lobbied for Democrats and Republicans kind of equally because they didn't really have a necessarily had a spear as 9/11 happened. They started lobbying a little more for Republicans because that was on the tail of Bush doing the Patriot Act, which gave them a way to source more data, find more things. There's a quote from a former employee. Let me find it real quick. Um, that he worked there during that time, and this is something that seems to be kind of the theme of this company as far as ever since they've started, they have done some weird stuff with privacy, and employees have came out and speaked out about it. Quote from a former employee: "The broad story of Palantir told itself and employees it was coming out of 9/11, and we knew there was going to be a big push for safety, and we were worried that the safety might infringe on civil liberties." And this is a former employee who's reporting to the Wired, who is a online outlet, media outlet. And he goes on to say, and now the threat is coming from within. I think there's a bit of an identity crisis and a bit of a challenge. We are supposed to be the ones preventing a lot of these abuses, and now we are not preventing them. We are seen to be enabling them. And this guy, he quit in around 2011,
Uh-huh.
and right around 2011 was um, Palantir's also been accused of smearing like any people who've spoken out against them or questioned what they're doing. There's a quote we played last week where Alex Karp was talking about he wished that they could have drones laced with fentanyl spraying analysts who didn't speak good about him. And that's paraphrasing it, but that's a fucking real crazy, bizarre quote.
Right.
And also in Gaza and through Gaza and Israel, some of the people who have spoken out about how they're targeting people, there is reports that they helped kill over 150 journalists in that country by targeting them, by using their cell phone data, tax records, and that's essentially
Hey,
these people could find your cell phone.
real quick
Yeah,
interruption. Do you think that they might have had something to do with Israel's pager setup? You remember how they
yeah,
were
I
detonating
I
pagers?
wouldn't. There's so there, and like I said, that was a sister company, and I think the name of the sister company was Stargazer. I could be wrong, but there was something where Peter Thiel was at a conference and that question was brought up, and he said, "Refer to Israel," is what he said. He
Referred to
totally
Israel and what they
scapegoated
say
the
about their
question.
own nuclear
Yeah,
weapons.
yeah, and just some of their. So in 2012, what happened was this was a lot of people, the people who aren't for Palantir, they talk about the company was accused of submitting a proposal to hack and smear journalists and activists on behalf of a corporate client, which involved targeting WikiLeaks and revealed by the HB Gary email scandal. And this is in 2012, anonymous hackers breached the security firm HB Gary Federal. HB Gary Federal exposing emails revealed a proposal by HB Gary, Palantir Technologies, and Burnco Technologies to sabotage WikiLeaks and supporters like journalist Glenn Greenwald. The plan was included to spread misinformation, creating fake documents, and cyber attacks. Um, there's also been a lot of reports of lack of transparency, kind of what I was talking about, like with their black box algorithms. They say they're going to do something, but they're not telling us how they're going to do it. So like it's a big concern. So when they're collecting, ICE is collecting data for saying they're trying to find immigrants, and now ICE, we've also changed what we call a domestic terrorist, or what could be a domestic terrorist. So are they collecting immigrants' data, or are they just collecting everyone's data to see if you speak out against the cabinet or where you're at? You know, they also could collect all your tax records, find out if you donated to any campaigns, any nonprofits. Like they literally have access to everything that we've done, whether it's on a computer, they have access to your cell phone, so they could probably tap it and be listening. You know, there's a lot of and the guides of the Patriot Act allows them to do that,
Yep.
you know, and that's why um and when it comes to like the lobbying, did I talk about the lobbying already?
No.
The they've lobbied in the recent history, they've lobbied far harder for Republicans.
You talked about it just a little at
And
the
so,
beginning, like prior to 9/11,
yeah,
that they were going back and forth between the
yeah,
Democratic Party and
back
the
and forth.
Republican
So,
Party, depending, I guess, on who would kind of accept their
yeah,
premises and their
uh,
outcomes, you know?
yeah, exactly. And that was before they were getting too weird. This is just when people are starting to see what this company was about. And right around 2014, they started pushing more for Republicans. Palantir, the company itself, donated in the last run of elections, donated a million more dollars to Republicans. But within that, Peter Thiel donated $14 million, dollars, not from Palantir's, from Peter Thiel's personal money
Mhm.
to JD Vance. And one of the, like a $14 million contribution for a governor, that's gonna cover, you know, probably 70 to 80% of what you need to actually not what you need, but what you think you need to run for that position. So anytime you see large numbers from like that coming from an individual donor, there's something much deeper behind that. They're
Yeah.
trying to get their foot into the government, you know. Um, there's been a couple. Massey has spoken out pretty hard against Palantir, worrying about the deep state, particularly. concerned with relationships with U.S. intelligence community and the threat it poses to our civil liberties. And this is, I mean, yeah, if you're somebody who cares about the Constitution and you care about what the fucking government knows about you and inside your own house, this should be wildly alarming to you, you know? And this is also going to be one of those things that don't think a Democrat isn't going to turn this and use it. They might cut ICE in half, but you don't need all the soldiers when you have Palantir in place already. They're going
That's
to be
true.
digging up the
Yeah.
same data. And there's been some like, so the Democrats in the last year who've taken money from them and all the stuff has came out, and mostly their relationship with ICE, they have pledged that they're going to donate their money to another cause that was donated to their campaign from Palantir. Um, One of our guys, Noah Khan, he took about $50,000. He said he's gonna donate it back. I'm not a big Hickenlooper fan, but in Colorado, Palantir was in Colorado for a while,
Huh.
and eventually, with this last swing of immigration stuff, they have since left. But actually, some of their biggest donors were to Colorado politicians on the Democratic side. I think there was Hickenlooper, Jason Crow, both took between 70 and $80,000 from him, and both have since pledged to um, give that donation to another, nonprofit or something like that. But and then there's also some real fishy shit
And
that
also
they did
real
in New
real quick,
Orleans.
I'll let you
Oh,
but,
go ahead.
the thing about Palantir too, it's kinda like it goes up the escalation ladder. You know what I mean? Like, it starts with being stuff that seems like it's really, really easy just to be like, "Sure, yeah, whatever." It's kinda like with the Patriot Act stuff, right? "No, you don't have anything to hide. What are you worried about?" You know? That's where it starts. That's where it starts, and then as you move up the escalation ladder, it ends with dogs with fucking rifles on their backs killing people, or drone strikes,
Right.
or a Hellfire, you know, missile coming through your freaking window. Like, that's where it ends. It
Well,
starts with the data collection, and it ends with killing humans through technology and AI
and
technologies.
and it and it goes hand in hand with Trump. You know, um, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'd probably say the ICE force has grew by 50,000 people. That's that's federal law enforcement that has a different code than our law enforcement, and that code is
Actually,
enabled by things like the pay.
yeah. Federal law supersedes state law too.
Yeah, and it's enabled even more by the Patriot Act. And that's the biggest thing here. If you start looking at Palantir, ICE, it wasn't just the it's troops on the ground, and I don't know, a lot of people who think having a federalized police agency running our streets is a fucking good idea on either side of the party. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of conservatives used to speak out really hard about that, and now
Well, they'll
it
speak out
doesn't
hard
seem
about
to
it if it's
be.
the ATF running around looking like Navy SEALs, right? It's like, I have a big problem with the militarization of law enforcement. Like, I hate these guys running around looking like fucking Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, right? With their plate carriers on, their shorty rifles, all their fucking tack gear that they're doing you're doing a traffic stop, class B misdemeanor contact, and you're coming to the window looking like you're in freaking Pakistan as a contractor. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, especially the federal side, it can get absolutely ridiculous for sure. And they love the toys, man. They love the toys. They love to spend money on looking cool. I'm telling you right now, looking cool is half the battle. It always is.
Well, and the thing too is, in some of Trump's cuts, he's actually cut for like government programs that help local police departments. Like, he's cut money from those programs and then invested it into a federal police, and that's fucking super sketchy to me. And
Mhm.
uh, and going back, so in 2018, um, in New Orleans, they had like a Palantir set up the first ever like pre-crime um pre-crime algorithm essentially set up in New Orleans, and it was widely done secretively. And like how pre-crime works is it's going to look at you, it's going to look at your social status, and then it's going to have algorithms that flag you for certain things. And if pre-crime is out there, you need to tell the public because they're going to behave differently if they know they're being watched,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And they didn't tell the public, and a lot of the proponents was saying it was proportionally targeting like low income shitty individuals. And the reality is, if you're a low income individual, you're probably going to have committed a crime. So it's like it's setting up. It's. I mean, I don't like the idea of pre-crime at all. I think that's fucking crazy sci-fi shit. Um, we talk about free will. We talk about all this stuff. Like that's playing God, you know. And the fact that they already did something like this, and this one's hard to find. You know, like the research on it. It was hidden so
Of
far.
course it is.
You know, because
Yeah.
I heard them talking about Elon Musk has talked about pre-crime stuff a little bit, and a couple other the AI guys. Sam Altman's talked about it, but the fact that they already implemented it and tried it, and it showed that there was a bunch of problems, like they put it out and then slowly pulled it off because they didn't want the public to see what was actually happening. You know,
Reminds me a little bit of the,
and
like, Minority Report movie with Tom Cruise.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's based on. You
Yeah, it
know,
totally makes sense, but
and
yeah. Mhm.
there's a big push too for it. So Amazon, who is owned by oh fuck, him and his son just bought
Oh, yeah,
all the
Bezos?
media. Um no,
Bezos?
well, Amazon's owned by Bezos, but somebody bought his media arm, like the Prime arm. It's the same guy who Elkman, he bought CNN and all those things. But anyways, like they just put another movie out that Pratt, what's his name? Chris Pratt's in,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's basically a pre-crime movie, almost making you feel like we need to have this, but it kind of shows like the bad side of it, like but then like the need for it, and kind of like the slowly conditioning people to like we need this safety, we need our streets to be safe, you know, like, and it's the same with the
Security
Minority
over liberty.
Report, like
Security over
yeah,
liberty.
you know, there's been
A tale as old as time, bro. They were talking about security over liberty in the freaking 15th century, 16th century, 17th century, 18th
right.
century, 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. Security over liberty has been a big problem for humans for a long fucking time because it's a really good way for the oligarchs or the kings or the elites, and their names are their names change, but who they are has always been the same, right? To maintain
Right.
control over the
Eh,
population. Fear is the best control over population you could ever have. I mean, look at 9/11, what 9/11 did with the Patriot Act and like the total control
mm,
power grab that it did, where we're just like, fucking take our rights. Or, or Donald Trump posts something on True Social that says, I'm 100% willing to trade my liberties as an American citizen to hand it over to the military industrial complex. It's basically what he said. You know what I mean? And Tulsi Gabbard and
I
like Mike
mean,
Johnson and all these assholes that fucking lie to you about it so they can get into power.
when you see um the government selling the panic and fear, and then they have a cure right after that,
Right?
like you should be spectacle or you should be skeptical, whether it's COVID, whether it's like if something wasn't a thing 4 years ago, and then within a year it blows up into a thing, whether it's a liberal thing or a right wing thing, there's a fucking agenda behind it. It's just, you know, like, and not to say it's all fucking conspiracy theory, but typically there's some truth behind that agenda, but then it is catapulted through fear mongering. The media outlets pick their side, they divide us, you know, and yeah, I think when you have somebody scared, like that's what they're going to do. They're going to react, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
And and a lot of people too, like their ties to Israel. A lot of people call them warmongers. Critics have described the company as warmongers. Its technology is deeply unethical for tool for surveillance. as an example of its evil nature of Palantir's work, it appears that Palantir has been working with the Israel military, as we talked before, in so-called targeting killings, and reports have suggested in that these numbers are probably in the thousands of tens of thousands, and
Yeah.
that's just
You know what's sad?
and
But it's it's sad, but it's real true. We do the same thing. Like, we do this all the time. We
oh
experiment our weapons on humans. We run you
yep
it's an experimental program, like, we do it on purpose. So, like, if Palantir is doing it through Israel, guess which humans are being experimented on? It's the Palestinians and the Lebanese right now, right?
yeah
They're basically being like, how do these weapon system how effective, first of all, is this surveillance technology, right? The pager stuff, things like that. And then how effective are
right
your strikes? And then we're
well and
doing the same
that's
thing even in Ukraine. We test a lot of our weapon systems and technology through Ukraine against Russia. And we did that in the '80s against Russia in the '80s and proxies, and it's like it was done in Vietnam, it's been done everywhere repeatedly. People are constantly testing weapon systems and technologies on humans through warfare.
w- well and the um and it's intentional that you have a sister company that's essentially owned by all the same people. It's just another name
Yep,
you do in another country. So there's some disconnect of what happened in um, Israel versus, Palantir versus their sister company.
right.
And and it and then they, just using social media information, cell phone tracking, there's proof that there's been numerous drone strikes on journalists in Israel, and it's kind of just more power for the course, and how they talk about it, like they're proud of it, you
Yeah,
know. And so some of the alignment with the Trump administration, um, the Trump administration has heavily integrated Palantir software across agencies to build a centralized database for tracking migrant movements and aggregating personal data. Um, Political ties, and this is going to be to alongside the Trump campaign. Political ties. Republican figures have close ties to Palantir's leadership. Co-founder Peter Thiel has historically funded Republican campaigns and co-founded Joe's Clydesdale to serve as a strategist of the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge.
yep.
And that's another thing is like Doge compiled so much data in the time that they had, and it was less about cutting programs and more about compiling data,
It wasn't at all about cutting programs.
and
It wasn't at
yeah,
all. That's
yeah,
how they sold it, right? It's like that's how they do
yes,
this shit. That's how they sell it. Like, think about how fired up I was. I remember I was super fired up when Musk hired those, like, 19-year-old freaking coding geniuses to break into all these different institutions to find fraud and bullshit spending and, like, all this stuff. The corruption that we're talking about through the trading right now with the Trump administration, right? That exact same kind of corruption. The exact same kind of corruption.
right.
The same kind of corruption you see with insider trading with the Republicans and with the Democrats. Right now, it's happening a lot more with Republicans. But it's like, um, yeah, yep. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Well, and the sad fact is it runs rampant in either party. The Somalian investigation with that young kid dug up, and like, and then you go like Trump. I forget how many people who he has pardoned for fraud, and it was because it was a fraud case that was done by a liberal judge or something like that, and that's the whole thing. Like
Or
one,
they used, like, FISA
all it,
702, like they did against him, that he
yeah,
now supports, that he now supports, that he
yep,
now supports.
and that's the
The double standards, man,
this is going to be this is going to be weaponized for whichever party has it, and don't think they won't use it to their benefit,
always.
and to stand pat why we let this happen. And this is why AI and these things need to have regulations, and every one of these people is talking about like, oh, we can't regulate this stuff, we need all these data centers, we need all this. Why are they trying to shove this shit down our throats so fucking fast? Like we're talking about like the data center they're going to put in Texas. It's one of the it's I think it's a 20-mile campus, and they said that one data center alone is gonna take up more power than the whole fucking state of Texas.
Oh yeah, dude, the data centers.
Like,
Yeah, so this will get into the energy stuff that we're going to talk about a little later. Whether or not they're getting kidnapped and used with purpose or killed or like whatever it is, but those data centers take up a wild amount of electricity. I mean, you almost need like a nuclear power plant. You know what I mean? Like right next to
right.
it to be able to give it the kind of power it needs. I saw a couple videos on X, dude, of people that were living right next to those, like, well, not right next, like half a mile away from some of those centers. Did you know how loud those things are?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, these people are half a mile away, bro. They're half a mile away from these data centers, and it sounds like they're sitting out there at night on their front porch recording it, and it sounds like they got a generator running in their backyard. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like,
and
it's terrible.
and it uses a massive amount of water for the cooling system, and it is a closed loop system, but under the amount of heat that it makes, they're evaporating water. So like you have to replenish that water. It is a closed loop system, but like you have to flush and replenish the water, and then all the stuff they're filtering out. Like there was a reason.
The thing about it is too is
Fr-
we're missing pieces to the energy puzzle. Do you know what I'm saying? Because
right.
if you look at if there is an advanced civilizations and it's you know it seems a lot more it's so much more reasonable now to talk about these programs, you know, that Congress is talking being very, very open about, the president's even talking about it now, like, everybody's talking they're having all kinds of hearings on it now. It used to be that you were put in the National Enquirer, right, for talking about advanced technologies and different propulsion systems and plasma energy and stuff like that, and it's like, that we're missing some pieces of the puzzle. Do you know what I'm saying? Because these energy systems, these UAP energy systems and everything, the way that they're able to move, navigate, like flash, appear, disappear, like
Go underwater
go underwater,
without,
go from 0 to fuck off in like negative seconds, right? And the fact that there's no propulsion system, you can't hear it at all. You can't see how it's propulsion at all. And meanwhile, we have these we're kind of in this weird tweener stage right now, right? Where our technology is advancing so fast, it's advancing faster than our energy can keep up with it. You know, than our
yeah.
current energy systems that we've been using for 100 years. These, you know, international industries that are worth billions of dollars that we're killing thousands and thousands of people every single year to protect are really, really out of date. They're so fucking out of date. And it's like we're in this weird space. It's like we're trying to push through a piece of plastic, like a plastic Ziploc bag, right? And you're pushing your finger through it and you're waiting for it to pop through. I feel like we're at this stage in our society right now where we've advanced so much in the last few hundred years and so rapidly in the last 20 or 30 years, where it's like we're pushing through that Ziploc bag and we're waiting for it to pop so we can get to that next form of energy and change our entire
Right.
society into what it's going to be for the next 2 or 300 years. But before we can do that, before we pop through that Ziploc bag and create that pop, we're get the resistance from the bag is the government in these different programs,
Right.
in these specialized programs. That's the Ziploc bag. We're the human people and natural human development is the finger. The bag through history has happened, whether it was the Catholic Church presented as a bag you had to push through, right? And get that pop. Like this has happened over and over and over again as societies progress and humans progress, where you got to push through that natural resistance that really is kind of just where the money comes from because that's what it always comes back to,
Well,
right? The funding and the money, whether it's the church,
and
whether it's before that, whether it's Rome, whether it's now, it's whether it's the oil companies and the coal companies, it's all about the bottom line. That's it. And then you push past it to a different form, you accept it, and then you spend hundreds of years developing new technologies and you still have to keep pushing humanity forward. It's a tough thing to do. There's always
well,
mass resistance.
and I think the problem with all of this is like when it lies with energy, is capitalism, you know? Like, and when we get into like the single point and nuclear stuff, cold fusion, like it's a little different, but within the realms of the energy we
A
know,
lot of it's
so you
pretty the
have
same.
fossil,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even with the
Well,
people that don't
you
open
have
source it.
fossil, yeah. Well, and right now, like as the energy we know, we have fossil fuels and renewable energies, right? And each one of those energy sectors, because of capitalism, want to cannibalize each other. And when like there's certain regions where renewable energy makes a lot more sense than fossil fuels. There's certain places where an electric car makes a lot more sense than a gas powered vehicle. Instead of saying like, what is best for this region in this place, we say one's good, one's bad. You're going to cut off, and they complain about the same thing. So like anytime there's a push to regulate gas and oil and move into renewable energy, which the Democrats do every time they're elected, everyone goes, oh, all the jobs are going to lose. And it's true. We are going to kill a bunch of jobs. There's going to be less oil fields. There's going to be less drilling, and then on the other hand, you have all these jobs for now people who had 4 years of, I'm going to go be a solar engineer because that's what our government's investing in. So you go and get a degree in a solar engineer, you go and do all this stuff under a Democrat, and then a Republican comes in and goes, oh, that shit's nonsense. I'm going to cut any funding. I'm going to cut anything for that. And it's this big cyclical pattern
Yeah.
of energy, but it's about the money. Like one of my first falling off the Democrats bandwagon happened when I was really young. And it really helped me see politics from a different perspective. And it was the Gore um, Bush presidency
The
campaign.
hanging Chad.
And this
The
was,
hanging
yep.
Chads, baby, from Florida.
And what made me not really like buy into Gore was he was a big promoter of wind energy. And that's when wind energy was fucking not efficient. It was the least efficient. And I understanding like
Still
investing
is.
money into
Still
something
is
that,
pretty inefficient.
and
Yeah.
it still is. It's not as bad as some
Solar
people
and
make
wind
it
are
out
pretty
to
tough.
be. And it also
You can't do
it
mass energy
depends
production
because
with it. Yeah.
well, that's the whole thing. You could do off the grid energy with
Yeah,
it,
you can totally
great.
do off the grid.
But
Yeah.
the government doesn't. A lot of places they make that as hard as possible for you to do. There's certain places in like Alabama where like you can't do that. Like it's fucking illegal. You know.
Dude, one of the
So
people we're
like
gonna talk about with these energy systems here in a minute, like one of the guys ended up getting, I think it was in the UK, he ended up getting arrested and put in prison because he was refusing to use his electric meter because he had developed an energy
yeah.
system, a single point energy system that he was using. He was running his entire home off of it. His entire home
No,
off of this little device that he had created,
and
and he wasn't using the meter, and they put him in prison because he refused to use the grid. He's like, I'm not using the fucking grid because he was in town and everything. He's like, no, I'm running my house off this thing right here. And it's like, dude, they put him in prison for it. They put him in prison because he refused to run on the grid and have his house metered.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, and the big thing is why they make it illegal because why would somebody paying into the system if they could invest in, and that's the big push of like why all these things are smeared, like wind, solar, like all that stuff. Like you're not paying into the system, and it benefits both parties to run psyops on why the shit is so bad,
It's like
and
psychedelics
then
versus antidepressants, right? You take psychedelics, it could
right,
be a one time, you're not a forever patient anymore. It's like if you
right,
have a single point energy system in your home that you're running your home on, you buy it once, it runs it forever. You don't ever have to fucking do it again. You're not paying for anything. And it's like you're not a forever customer. If your house isn't getting metered and you're not getting charged monthly, you're not a forever customer. You know what I'm saying? If you take psychedelics and it cures you of your depression and your trauma and you're not taking antidepressants, guess what? You're not a forever customer anymore. That's a fucking
right.
problem. That's a big, big problem for our
Well,
society.
it's I mean, this is one of the things I hate about capitalism because it promotes things like this, because it is about making money. And at the end of the day, like that's what it's always been about. So
The weird
like
thing about
people
capital
will
is
say,
it's like a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword
yeah,
because it promotes a shit ton of innovation. Why? Because the human construct desires really, really positive outcomes. Okay. And so if you're an inventor, we have this problem with these energy systems here that we're going to talk about here in a minute. A lot of these guys ended up taking it to the grave. You know why they do? Rather than open sourcing it. And it's like they could open source it and help out humanity and just let it run. You know what I mean? But you're not going to make money on it. You're not going to make money on it then.
right.
And so it's like you have a great piece of technology that you invented, but you don't, when you patent it, you fake the patent so nobody can reproduce it, right? On purpose. You do it on purpose that way so nobody can reproduce your patent, or the federal government, when they eminent domain your patent, they can't actually
Right.
reproduce it. That's really why they do it. And then it's for financial gain. And they're just dudes. They're just dudes working in a garage that came up with some crazy shit because they're wildly intelligent. You always get these little Einsteins running around that nobody knows about, you know? And it's like, even for them, it's monetary gain. It's the most natural human condition that we have, right? Our individual outcomes. And so it's like that's what you have in the capitalist system. You have, we're gonna give you wild individual outcomes as long as you can produce XYZ. You produce XYZ, you're gonna have a mansion, an awesome car, your kids are gonna have great health insurance, you can send your kids to great schools, you can buy your wife nice shit. You know what I mean? That's the natural
I
thing about it. But then on the other side of it, it, just like you said, it causes cannibalization because you're gonna wanna kill your competitors, and you're gonna wanna
yeah,
naturalize, you're gonna wanna promote monopolies if you're the one that owns the monopoly, right? And so
right.
you inevitably, it's just a matter of time, like, you get people that are gonna take advantage of the system, and then the people that are more humble, right? More honest, actually wanna promote goodness and stuff, they're gonna get driven out. They're gonna get eaten. They're gonna get fucking eaten.
Well, and that's the yeah, exactly. That's the crux of capitalism. And I think capitalism is great to start a society on as far as like a growing society. Like in the
You get explosive
coming
with it.
out of World War II, yeah, coming out of World War II and stuff, like I do think there's benefits, but I also think without some, and I know people hate this word, without some regulations at the largest level, like it becomes what we are now, this big gap of, like right now we have more people who have been in banking and big business in our government than ever before, and Palantir, going back to Palantir, like they talk about having like AI and like companies run the government, not government run the government,
Yeah,
like corporate government. And that's
yeah.
fucking scary.
It's kinda
That's
like how you wanna go,
dystopia.
how federal law
Yeah.
enforcement supersedes domestic law enforcement
Yeah.
with intention,
And,
right?
and this, and a huge part of this is energy,
Oh,
if
energy's
imagine if we
everything,
didn't
dude.
have an electric bill, and
Everything. It always has been.
back to what you were talking about,
Yeah, dude. And
and
it's
all the
like you talk about the
scientists,
regulation. You brought up regulation, right? And it's like nobody wants to talk about regulation. Well, it's like, guess what? If you're runs in a Keynesian system of capitalism built around debt and credit and monopoly, there's way, way, way more regulation than if you just have one regulation saying that this market is entirely open no matter fucking what, without winners and losers, without speculation, without monopolies or anything else. You either live or die based on your creation and based on the market. Period. The end. End of fucking story. That's it. That's all.
right,
That's less regulation. That's a hell of a lot less regulation
right,
than all the regulation we put on small business owners, small corporations, people, like with 50 or less employees. They have a hell of a lot more taxes and shit to deal with regulation wise than like Amazon does, right? Or Cabela's
right.
or Bass Pro Shop.
Well, and like the shitty thing about regulations, and I think sometimes, especially in certain sectors, Democrats have a hard time understanding that, like, the cannibalism of capitalism. So if you're in that realm of trying to scale up as a small business and maybe go corporate, maybe try to get into the stock market, you're right in that group, or you're looking for investors. You're not quite grown. You might be able to do it by yourself, and then a regulation comes along that is going to make your job more expensive to do that. These big corporate companies, one, have the money to take on that regulation, and two, they plan to they plan to get sued, because sometimes to go against the regulation, they'll make more money than being actually sued. So that's like, and then the small guy,
Pharmaceutical companies were
he
the same way,
yeah,
right? If we make $3 trillion, it's worth killing,
right,
50,000 or
yeah,
50,000
exactly, and
people. It's like, we'll take that loss because when they sue us, we'll pay them out $500 million, but we netted $2 billion.
yeah,
Yeah.
and well, and then what eventually happens is the small guy either has to close down his business because he can't take on the regulatory costs, or he says like, I can't take this on, but I think I could cheat it. He cheats it. The government comes in, shuts him down, and then the corporation buys his company.
Yeah.
And then, so in some cases, regulations, if they're not done properly, like just empower the corporation. Like in big oil, like all these small oil companies, when Obama came in and put some bigger regulations on drilling and stuff, like these small oil companies that were employing like more local people, weren't these big conglomerates, like they would essentially get shut down and bought by the big guy. So all
Yeah.
these small companies,
That's the whole plan,
that
dude.
were,
Eat it,
and
put it in the monopoly.
yep, and that's, if regulations aren't done right, and if the regulations aren't regulated right, or you're talking about the form of capitalism, what is true capitalism, like this will continue to happen, you
Yeah.
know? And there's a double-edged sword with it. But I think you need to go into
Yeah, let's do
the
it.
12 scientists that have gone missing, because that's fucking wild, man. And the
Let's
more you
do
dig into
it.
it, the more you scratch your fucking head.
We're gonna get into some deep waters here. We're gonna get into some deep fucking waters here, people. Some serious speculation. But what have we been saying about conspiracy theories, boys and girls? They're in the Hall of Fame. Batting 900, baby. Hall of Fame's 300, 3 out of 10. Conspiracy theories are sitting 8, 9 out of 10 right now. I mean, they're killing it. Let's rock and roll. Hey, that was good information, Joel. That was good shit, man. That was really good shit. And so now that's a perfect lead into, I feel like, some of this energy stuff. And so over the last 4 years, at least 10 American scientists, engineers, and military officials have either been killed or have disappeared without a trace, completely disappeared without a trace. The FBI announced earlier this year that it's opening an investigation into this specific stuff with these scientists. Congress is asking questions, and even Trumpy has brought it up. This pattern, the pattern of inventors or researchers working on world changing energy technologies and then winding up dead or discredited or broken or having all their stuff stolen and then left out to dry. That pattern didn't start in 2022, even though these scientists that like the more modern stuff that we're going to look into, pretty much that pattern started over the last few years. It really goes back 100 years. To pretty much to Nikola Tesla, who died alone in his room in 1943, and whose papers, inventions, technologies, write-ups, documents were all seized by the federal government within hours of him being found dead. The FBI went into his apartment and seized all of his research, all of it, and classified it. And it's basically has never seen the light of day since then. And that was in 1943. And that was not, it's not a theory, that's documented. That happened. You can Google that shit. It also goes back to Wilhelm Reich, a medical doctor trained under Sigmund Freud, whose laboratory equipment and books were physically burned by federal agents in 1956 under a court order, and he died in federal prison the next year. Jesus, terrible outcome for that poor dude. Victor Sabenberger and Henry Moray, whose labs were shot up in the 1940s. Stan Meyer, the inventor of a water-powered car deal, who, quote, said that he was poisoned. He literally was eating a meal with some friends in a restaurant and then started feeling something and ran outside pretty much in the parking lot and died. And the last thing he said is, they poisoned me. It's the last thing he said. So there's a guy that's kind of specializing in this stuff, and we've talked about him before. It's Dr. Stephen Greer. He's actually an MD. He's a medical doctor. He's wildly intelligent. He doesn't specialize in medicine anymore, but he has performed surgeries. I mean, he's a no shit MD doctor who worked for a long time as a doctor before he got into this field of like kind of alternative energy, UAP research stuff, plasma, things like that. And so it's like, what if the deaths we're seeing right now, like Amy Exkridge, which everybody kind of knows about, she's the gal that's like was 34 that was recently said that she said that she committed suicide, but there's like tons of videos of her being like, I'm not suicidal, please people, I'm not suicidal, and now she's dead via suicide. She texted a friend a month before she died and flat out told them, if they ever say I killed myself, I didn't. I mean, she sent that text out a month before she was found. This seems more like the kind of the latest chapter in something that's been going on for, what, like right around 100 years for sure. And so I'll go into the two
Right.
hypotheses again, and then we're going to go into the recent people before we go into kind of like the more to the people that are have been going on for like the last 100 years. And so, the thesis. This is the energy suppression hypothesis. Okay, the thesis: commercial scale fusion, genuine reactionless propulsion, or any other energy abundance technology would terminate the fossil fuel business model on a timescale measured in years, not decades. The present value of the global gas, oil, and coal industries is on the order of tens of trillions of dollars. Entities defending that value have, in principle, both the resources and motive to act, obviously. Another one is the UAP UFO disclosure hypothesis. The thesis with this is there exists a special access program, legally compartmentalized, I mean, legally hidden. That's what that means. Legally funded and legally hidden through funds and components that we can't access beyond congressional reach or presidential reach, even saying that these programs far exceed the clearances of a president or Congress that have been going on for a long time. That hold material and data from non-human technology. The program's continued concealment requires both information control inside the compartment and deterrent control over those adjacent to it who might independently reproduce, discover, or disclose this technology, right? And this kind of goes towards the inventors and the people that are able to somehow, some way reproduce some of this stuff. But if you do it independently outside control of the state, that is a really, really, really big problem. If a sufficiently valuable technology existed, one whose commercialization would cost a multi-trillion-dollar incumbent industry like the oil business, the bulk of its asset base, there is no plausible universe in which the incumbents like these oil companies would just simply absorb the loss and move on to the next thing.
Right.
Um, like this is what they're willing to do to protect their business, their industries, right? Fund competing research, obviously, to control the timeline, acquire and shelve promising work. That's usually done through eminent domain of patents. Capture the regulatory environment, mitigate patents into uselessness, discredit key researchers. And if none of that shit works, guess what? Murder, death, kill. That's pretty much the next option.
All right.
All right. So, who are some of these people? The subjects. Let's get into it. All right. So, we'll start with the most talked about. She put out a bunch of videos on X of her saying she's not suicidal and of her saying that she's been threatened repeatedly. Um, and she died of a self-inflicted, quote, self-inflicted gunshot wound at the age of 34. Amy Catherine Eskridge. Um, Degrees in biology and chemistry, co-founder Institute of Exotic Science with her father, who apparently was a very, very prominent PhD engineer. Um, Research focus: self-described anti-gravity propulsion and exotic energy concepts. She presented gravity modification work with her father, who was a retired NASA propulsion engineer. Okay, that's who her father is, who she was working hand in hand with. All right. Regarding documented threats, um, in interviews that they've had with her beforehand, describe harassment, sabotage, and psychological warfare against her entire team, not just her. Former British intelligence officer Frank Milburn stated she told him she had been targeted by a directed energy weapon producing burns and lesions on her hands. There's actually videos of this. So if you go on X and you go onto her account, she shows videos where her hands, she holds them out and they're really, really red and burnt just from the wrist up. And the rest of it's really white. It's kind of strange. It's almost like it's blistered. And she was saying that she didn't, she just kind of felt like a heat. And then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like had these outcomes on her hands, which is really, really strange. So she displayed these injured hands and burns on video. Representative Eric Burleson, who's a Republican out of Missouri, has publicly asserted there is significant evidence, quote, significant evidence of a directed energy targeting situation here with her. She had a text message to her business partner in 2022 where she stated explicitly that if anything ever happened, that when it comes to suicide or overdose, that she did not do it.
So this is the most recent one, and I just found this. This is very similar story. I don't know if he had much of a like YouTube following, but in the same field. So Joshua LeBlanc, a 29-year-old NASA nuclear engineer, was found dead in his burnt Tesla on July 22nd, 2005. His disappearance reported missing by his family at 4 a.m. in the morning on July 22nd, 2005. They discovered his body burnt in his Tesla at 2:45. Investigators determined the vehicle crashed into a guardrail of trees before bursting into flame. Data from the Tesla Serenity model shows it was at the Huntsville airport for nearly 4 hours on the morning of his death. Matt LeBlanc was team lead on the NASA Space Nuclear Propulsion Program, focusing on technology for the mission to Mars. And it's kind of weird that Musk would be very aware of that Mars mission and is the owner of Tesla that decided to blow up and burn somebody to death. I mean, kind of weird, but that I so
Well,
that's the most recent one that I found.
we're
But
finding a lot of coincidences, Joel. That's what we've been finding in our podcast. Is that the world is we're
yeah,
surrounded by nothing but coincidences. Everything's a
yeah.
coincidence. Good
If it
information there,
smells
dude.
like tin,
I didn't
if
have
it
that person
smells
on my
like
list
shit,
either. So that's yeah. What year? That's recent, right? They just found them, right?
um, June 22nd, 2005.
Yeah. So that's pretty close. That's pretty recent. It takes a little while for some of this information to get out, you know? It's just like this gal with this Amy Catherine Estledge girl. Like a lot of her videos and stuff are just, even though she's been dead for a few years, like they're just now surfacing. You know what I mean? Like they got into her social
Right,
media stuff and found all the stuff that she was saying and doing and being like, I'm not suicidal and this is what we're working on and this is we've been threatened and blah 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 blah. And so even though it's been a few years ago, like that stuff is just now starting to get real prevalent out in social media.
right.
All right, the next guy, Nuno Felipe Gomez Luerio. He's dead. He's dead. He got shot December in 2025. He was murdered, homicide. His education is physics, engineering, PhD in physics from the Imperial College in London. And his dissertation is in plasma, tearing modes in plasma. Plasma, what we're finding out, is kind of like the universe's energy source, it would seem. It's
Yep,
invisible, it's everywhere. We can't see it with our eyes. The cones in our eyes actually only let us see a very, very small amount of what's actually out there. I mean, if we had the right cones in our eyes, we might be able to see ghosts. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
there's a lot of stuff that we can't see because of our cones in our eyes, like infrared, thermal. There's anyway, plasma is one of those things.
There's been a lot of breakthrough in the study of plasma in the last 2 years
Yeah,
too,
a lot.
and
Mhm.
whether it's related to strictly science or more things like consciousness or stuff like that. So if you're
I
ever
think it's
bored
all
and want to
related.
go in a wormhole,
I think
yeah,
energy and
yeah,
consciousness is wildly related. 100%. I think
yeah,
they're kind of one of the same. So he worked at Princeton in the plasma physics laboratory. He worked with fusion energy in the UK, Institute for Plasma and Nuclear Fission at MIT. He was also an MIT professor. This guy is this guy was the guy who was murdered recently. This guy did make the news. It kind of kicked a lot of this stuff off. Younger guy, he was like 34, good looking guy. He
yeah.
lived in a place where there's like no murder at all. They lived in a place with basically no crime in any way, shape, or form. The guy comes into his house, just smokes him, doesn't steal anything, doesn't take his fucking watch, doesn't take his wallet, doesn't take his TV, doesn't do anything, just splits. You know what I'm saying? This guy was crazy, crazy smart. Research focus, magnetic reconnection, plasma turbulence, magnetic fusion, plasma astrophysics. Dude, I don't even know what any of this shit even is. basically his work was described and considered to be paradigm shifting to the entire energy industry. Paradigm shifting, like a massive, massive thing. And he was also about ready to give some presentations. Kind of weird how a lot of these people end up dying right before they're about ready to give presentations. It was the same thing with that Amy Catherine Eskeridge girl. She was about ready. They were about her and her father were about ready to give a big presentation on their findings. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it with him. But he was murdered in his house. So another number 3, William Neal McCasland, and he's been missing since February of 2026 out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's been missing since February 2026. He's 68 years old. Education career, he's a retired U.S. Air Force Major General. Full promotional record isn't publicly cataloged. It's not open source. But guy is wildly educated and had a really good career. Documented roles. He oversaw classified Air Force space and research programs, including work based out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is out of Ohio. It's one of the major UAP, UFO speculative research facilities there is out there. They talk about that kind of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is talked about a lot within the UAP community. The facility at the center, like I said, of the U.S. UFO folklore since Roswell. He has been a vehicle or to a UAP disclosure. It's something he spoke about. Circumstances. This is kind of weird, dude. He walked away from his home on foot, wearing hiking boots, carrying only his wallet and a .38 caliber revolver. He left his phone and his glasses behind. And apparently the guy couldn't see really well either. It's weird he left his glasses. Despite extensive search operations, no remains or signs of him have ever been discovered. So he just walked away from his house with a wallet and a pistol. Never came back. Nobody ever heard from him again. That's really, really recent.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, the next one, Monica Reza. Janito Reza. She's been missing. Again, there's another missing one since June of 2025. She is an aerospace engineer and materials processor, director of material processing at NASA's Jet Propulsionary Laboratory. And she also worked with a project called Aerojet. Research focus, material science applied to aerospace, specifically the fabrication, processing, and behavior of exotic materials used in propulsion and space systems. Exotic materials is the key there, because exotic materials is just kind of like a governmental terminology that you say to where unexplainable. You know what I mean? You call it exotic.
Right.
It's like you change UFO to UAP, right? You're changing the definitions and the verbiage a little bit so you don't sound certain kind of way to generations that got used to certain kind of verbiage making people sound crazy. Let me see. Disappearance. Okay. This one, dude, this one's even weirder than the last one, bro. This one's even weirder than the last one. The guy walking away with his .38 and never being seen again. She disappeared while hiking in Los Angeles, national forest, outside of Los Angeles in the national forest with a companion. Her friends reported, this is broad daylight, on a hike. Her friends reported looking back, seeing Reza about 30 feet behind them and smiling. And then they turned forward. And then moments again later, they turned around to talk to her and laugh, and she was gone. She was just gone. Multi-day ground and air searchers recovered no body, no clothing, no trace, no nothing. She was on a hike with her friends. She was the very last person on the hike with these people. And they were separated, 20, 30 feet. It's pretty normal to be separated in a hike. And everybody's talking to everybody. And then they turn around and she's just gone. Just gone. Never seen, heard from again. No clothing, no nothing. It's like she got sucked into the fucking atmosphere.
Right.
Just like that.
Disappeared.
That one is wild to me, bro. That one
And if
is
you
wild to me. And the fact that she's
and
working
if
on
there
exotic
was
materials with propulsion and space systems.
yeah.
Okay.
And if it was some sort of mountain lion or bear attack, you would have heard somebody scream.
Oh yeah, it
You
obviously
know,
wasn't
like
that. Yeah. I mean, she just
yeah, like
flat out vanished.
disappeared.
She was just Harry
That's
Pottered. They
fucking
just spelled her and put a cloak of invisibility on her and fucking split. All right, the next one.
Twilight Zone shit.
Carl Jonan Grillmeyer. He is deceased. He was killed February 2026. Education career, astrophysicist at Caltech's Infrared Process and Analysis Center. He was also a NASA partner and a long career in observable astrophysics. Research focus, dark matter and galactic structure using the Spitzer Space Telescope data. Exoplanet atmospheres, okay, studied exoplanet atmospheres, and he's credited with the discovery of water on a distant exoplanet atmosphere. So he's the guy. There was that planet that kind of mirrors Earth a little bit out there. I forget what it's called. He was the guy that was smart enough to discover water on that planet.
Right.
Worked on NASA's NEO-WISE and NEO-SURVEYOR near-Earth object programs. Primarily, like he's focused on like planetary defense and space surveillance. Like that's a pretty wild career, right? Planetary defense
Right.
and space surveillance, bro. Yeah, he got killed. He was actually shot on his porch, bro, by a stranger. He was God, where was this at? Does it say where it was at? Yeah, California. Llano, California. Guy lives in the country. Guy lives on like property in the country. Some dude, he's sitting on his porch, bro. Homeboy's sitting on his porch, drink coffee, reading the paper, doing whatever he's doing. Some guy he never met before walks up, one times him, walks away. That's it. Dude's dead. That's it. Okay.
Sounds
Nothing to see
like
here.
a hit to me.
Yeah, absolutely hit, dude. Guy's out in the country. This other chick's just walking on a fucking hike and just gets sucked up into the atmosphere. Like what? All right, here's another one. Michael David Hicks. He died. No public cause of death released. No public cause of death released. Can't find out how this guy died. Education career, research scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion. We've seen this a few times already, right? The whole Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I feel like I've said propulsion 3 times already with like 4 people.
Yep.
Jet Propulsion, NASA's
The
Jet
guy I
Propulsion
talked
Laboratory.
about.
Research focus, physical properties of comets and asteroids. This guy's actually pretty cool. So, research properties of comets and asteroids, worked on the DART program. DART stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test. Double Asteroid Redirection Test. And Deep Space One mission. He's also the author of dozens of peer-reviewed papers. So DART was the first successful kinetic planetary defense demonstration. So kinetic means like action, right? Like a kinetic war, be like ground invasion, gunfighting. It was kinetic when we rescued the F-15 pilots. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so it's like it was a demonstratable planetary defense system for asteroids. Humanity proved it could move a rock in space on command. Pretty crazy there, dude. Pretty
That
crazy
is.
there on that one. And also, no public cause of death was released at all for that guy.
And with him, whether it's propulsion systems or like the knowing of maybe there's something that's going to happen with comets or meteorite or asteroid that they don't want us to know. If you look into some of the ancient history, there is this belt of meteors that we're going to be coming back into, and
It's also
that's
possible
something that's always
a planet, a blown up planet. Like people
yeah,
speculate the
yeah,
Biru, right, with the Anunnaki and the Sumerians and different
yeah,
things like that. There is a lot of speculation that it was that the whole asteroid belt was a former planet in our system
right.
for whatever reason. It's
But
not. Yep,
the knowledge he would know about that particular thing would be
a
pretty
lot.
high up,
Be a lot. Yeah, and he would be it would be pretty compartmentalized because when you're talking about guys that fucking work on double asteroid redirections, you can
Right.
probably count those people on one hand. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. All right, here's another one. Frank Maywald. Deceased 2024. Again, no publicly disclosed cause of death. No publicly disclosed cause of death. He was the principal engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Joel,
Weird.
principal engineer at
Weird.
NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I'm seeing a pattern here, and I know I'm an idiot, but I'm definitely reading those words correctly. Research focused, designed critical flight instruments for NASA missions. At the time of his death, was working on the Surface Biology and Geology mission, a next-generation Earth-observing imaging spectrometer program. Instrument designer, pretty unusual position apparently. What U.S. space assets can and cannot see and at wavelengths. Some of the stuff is hard to understand because I just don't speak the language correctly. You know what I mean?
Right. 100%.
Right. And so anyway, yeah, really interesting job. Once again, part of jet propulsion, NASA's jet propulsion team, no publicly disclosed cause of death. And he designed instruments he designed NASA instruments for classified missions and stuff like that. He's like an instrument tech. Steven Garcia, he's been missing since 2025. He's 48 years old, just been missing, another missing person. Education career, government contractor at the Kansas City National Security Campus. The Department of Energy, DOE, is like we said, wildly important in the nuclear fields and other fields that have to do with energy. Obviously, Department of Energy, being it's the Department of Energy. National Nuclear Security Administration facility in Albuquerque. He was responsible for manufacturing non-nuclear components of U.S. nuclear weapons. Interesting. Circumstances: last seen on surveillance footage leaving his Albuquerque home on foot, carrying only a handgun. Wasn't there somebody else that just left carrying only a handgun and is never seen again? Weird. So you got these guys that are brilliant PhD, fucking scientist, inventor, educator, specialized. I mean, like we say, I can't even speak the language of these people. And two of them, on this list, walked away from their homes with a pistol and were never seen from again. And that's all they left with. A fucking pistol? You just leave your home and you just, okay. Weird one on that one. Next guy, Anthony Chavez. Chavez. Remember that from Young Guns?
Yes, I do.
We're in the spirit world, asshole. They can't see us.
Chavez. That's a good one. It's a great movie.
Dude, that's the cult classic of all time, buddy. All right, Anthony Chavez, education career, former employee of the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Los Alamos is another big UAP area. There's really no public record available on him for his role in the research division. It's very, very hush-hush. Speculative significance. He's been missing since 2025. Los Alamos is the crown jewel of the U.S. nuclear weapons complex. It's also been shut down by UAPs. They're flying over it, completely shut the entire base down. That's documented and searchable. The NNSA has publicly acknowledged it is looking into reports involving employees of its labs, plants, and sites, an unusual statement to issue unless something was prompting the review internally. But yeah, homeboy, there's almost nothing on this guy. Very, very little released on anything about this guy than the fact that he's just been missing since 2025. Melissa Casillas. She's been missing since 2025, Joel, too. She was also from the Los Alamos National Laboratory. So two people at two different times. One was in May. Chavez was in May 2025, and Melissa was in June 2025. Again, there is almost no information on this human. Very, very difficult to find anything. Very, very limited publicly available. She had administrative access and is often more revealing than technical access, which is like scheduling, travel, document routing, personal records, touch programs, and the technical staff actually never see, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, weird. They're both been missing, just missing, disappeared. Jason Thomas, um, went missing again in 2025. This is December 25, bro. Advanced degrees in physics, biology, and biophysics. Director level scientist at no, no, Novartis, known for work in drug discovery and chemical biology, pharmaceutical chemistry, and biophysics. Biophysics is interesting because you could be talking about bodies. Think about like body retrieval stuff. You get a lot of
Right.
biophysics people that seem to be involved with those programs. So those are the two people. Those are all the people basically, and plus the one you added for currently since 2022 that have basically been missing. And so now, do you want to say anything before we go into the historical people?
Um, no, but the last, I mean, one of my craziest UFO experience, by far the craziest UFO experience, and it was a group of people, so it wasn't like just me thinking I saw something, was in New Mexico. My family has property in New Mexico, and we had a family reunion out there, and
New Mexico's got a
I
lot of
had a pretty
history for that
wild,
stuff. New Mexico's got
yeah, I had a pretty,
crazy UAP history stuff.
yeah, I had a crazy UAP um experience where a group of us, it was with like a noise as well. It was very weird. Like there was the audible, like almost like a beeping noise. And we had a group of cousins sitting in the canyon on a rock, kind of like watching the moon and stars.
Yep.
And all the adults were probably 300 yards behind us. And it looked like there was this light was as bright as the moon, was getting brighter as the beeps got brighter. And then it almost looked like it swelled up and then just disappeared. And then it was silent. And we were all just like, what the fuck
Like an
just
orb?
happened?
Was it
Uh,
like an orb?
Yeah, and it took it looked further away than an orb. Like it looked like this like a fucking sun almost, but not as bright, like projecting. But it looked like it was on the horizon more than it did, but it was big. And then what makes me think it was an orb and it was a lot closer because all the adults didn't see it or hear anything. So there was like seven cousins sitting on this rock down lower in this canyon, and then the group of adults up here, and that orb went and moved, but it looked like it was on the horizon line. It didn't wasn't like in the canyon with us. Like it was up in the sky, but they never saw it and they never heard anything. And
Yeah,
it was bright enough to where like it felt like I could feel the heat from it almost. You
that's
know, it was
crazy, dude.
so fucking wild. And the only that's the only time where I've been like, what the fuck? Where I couldn't be like, oh, maybe that's something weird in the sky. Like that
Yeah.
was unexplainable to me.
I wish I don't have any personal stories. I really don't. It pisses me off. I don't, but I don't. I've seen weird stuff
Right.
darting around like 30,000 feet at night. You know what I mean? But you're like, is that a satellite?
Right.
Is that, it's hard to tell when it's so high up what's going on up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, there's also a lot of reports of people that see stuff and other people don't see stuff like almost right next to them. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
where two or three people will witness something and then like the fourth person in their party that's standing there can't see anything, like at all, zero things,
Right.
has no experience whatsoever out of five people standing there and three or four of them do and one or two of them don't. It's I don't know.
Right.
It's and then
It's
obviously
bizarre.
we're trying to understand this with our monkey brains. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's like it's a there's a lot of stuff what we're finding out a lot, especially if you listen to like the telepathy tapes, you investigate these UAP reports, single point energy, plasma energy stuff, like some of this other stuff with technologies and stuff. Like a lot of this stuff is kind of coming full circle. There's
Well, and like you said, it's all related, like the plasma, the energy, people who are
even
doing
with
like the
religion, I
astral
find it like
right.
initially it pushed me away from religion a lot. And it's kind of like bringing me back in where I feel like a lot of our more modern, like Abrahamic religions, probably all of them, even if you go back to like Zoroastrianism, pagans, things like that, like the gods, the half. human, half gods that would be like the giants or the, from the Nephilim, and then like
Right.
from the Anunnaki was kind of out of the same thing, and then like you think about the anyway, yeah, all that stuff is super super. We can get into a lot of that stuff, but I'm going to talk about Stephen Greer before we go.
Right.
Before we really go down that wormhole. Who's a like I said, it was an MD, retired emergency medicine physician. Um, and in 1990, he founded the Center for Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, CSETI, and in 1993, the Disclosure Project. His thesis, developed across 30 years of public work, views two claims that are usually treated separately. One, that the United States government has concealed knowledge of non human craft and the technology recovered from them. And two, that this case of energy generation devices based on the same underlying physics, which Greer usually calls zero point energy, single point energy, vacuum energy, or plasma energy, has been independently developed by civilian inventors and systematically suppressed for at least a century, which is what we're kind of getting into with the
So
local people or the more recent people.
real quickly, and this is like recent, as of like the last few days, and this guy, I don't know if he was a scientist, but David Wilcox, he's a UFO researcher and a big proponent with UFO disclosure and other like pushing the government to disclose what they know about UFOs. He's actually from Boulder and he just killed himself. Reports say the cops showed up and then they heard a gunfire and it was a self-inflicted gun wound. So it sounds like a suicide, but another person, he's been on the History Channel talking about ancient alien
Oh yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I saw that guy.
uh,
Yeah, UFO guy.
he's
Mhm.
kind of a
He's done a
little
ton of
cringy because
podcasts and
he's
stuff
into
too.
some of yeah he does he's a little cringy because he does some spiritual stuff too, and that's when you like all the stuff is related because you talk about consciousness and plasma energy. Like when you get in this
I don't
wormhole,
even
you
think that's
start to
fringy
realize
anymore. I think we've moved
no,
past that
I don't
stuff
think
being
it is,
fringy. I
but
know what you're
like
saying, like to the
there's
regular
groups of
public.
people that do.
Yeah, to the regular
Yes,
public it
yes.
is. To the people that don't actually look into this shit and they just watch memes all day. You know what I mean? If you really
Right.
want to
Right.
investigate it, what you're really finding out is that this stuff isn't speculative or fringy at all, and it's been going on for thousands.
Well, and with the discoveries of plasma, like some of the stuff that would have sounded crazy 4 years ago, like is being proven true. And when it
Exactly.
comes to plasma and consciousness, there's a
Yeah,
lot
go
of
figure, right?
really interesting stuff out there. Yep.
If you're out there and you haven't watched the telepathy tapes or listened to the telepathy tapes with non-verbal autistic kids and the way that they're able to communicate like telepathically with their parents and their teachers, and it's actually measurable scientifically now, and they're making a documentary out of it. I think it'll come out on Netflix here pretty soon. Go freaking listen to the telepathy tapes and do yourself a
Well,
favor, and it will blow your goddamn mind. It will blow your
and the look at the papers on remote viewing that the CIA released, of programs they had with remote viewing and how some of these remote viewers had like a 80% success rate of like viewing
oh
what they're
yeah.
trying to find. And these are people who are putting themselves in a meditative state and like going to a like projecting into like a Russia bombing place, like in 1970s, like
Dude, it
there's
goes right into
and they're
like if you think about our legal system, it's built around for criminality, it's built around beyond a reasonable doubt, right? You need to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the 99 percentile. That's kinda like what they tell you. Even though I don't think it's that high. I don't think the standard's that high. I really don't at all, but that's kind of like taught. And in civil cases, it's a 51-49%. That's what's different between like civil and criminal. Criminal is supposed to be the standard's supposed to be much, 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 much higher. But, it's like a lot of these things that we're finding, they go into like that 90% category. You know what I'm saying? Like
right,
if you're in the 80% plus, like what you were saying, you're getting into the realm of criminal conviction of like beyond a reasonable doubt. We send
right,
people to the goddamn electric chair based on eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness
right.
testimony. We will kill people. We'll fucking inject you. We'll electrocute you based on eyewitness testimony. And we have eyewitness testimony that goes in for all of these programs, the energy systems, and everything else that gets into that beyond the reasonable doubt realm, 80 to 90 percentile, where you could kill people for an eyewitness testimony that we call fringe. That we call fringe.
Right.
That's how crazy but that's the thing. Like, it's not fringe anymore at all. It's just the people that
Yeah.
have actually taken the time to read and investigate it and the people that have it. That's it. That's what we have.
I
And so
I agree.
Greer, he has what he calls the suppression mechanism, as he describes it, and it operates across multiple layers. And we talked about it a little bit with the other scientists, right? And it's like you eventually get to the point to where if all these other things don't work, we're just going to fucking kill you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
if the patent stealing doesn't work, if the shooting up your place doesn't work, if the text messaging threatening stuff doesn't work, if the freaking energy system we just deployed on you doesn't work, then there is another
Right.
stage that we'll implement. And so, one, patent secrecy orders. Patent secrecy orders. And this is a real thing, people. Okay. It's called the Secrecy Act of 1951. You can look this up. It also carries a 20-year federal prison sentence for violating this act, even if it's your own invention, Joel. Even if it's your own
Yeah.
invention, you violate this act and you re-access a patent that they have now classified, even if it was your invention, your ass is going to prison for 20 years. Secrecy Act of 1951. Gary Vasperman, whose suppression casework Greer cites, has documented more than 5,000 that he's been able to find such orders issued since the statute's enactment in 1951, some of which have been remained enforced permanently and indefinitely, almost all of them. So since 1951, he's been able to discover 5,000 patents that have been intentionally suppressed based around energy systems by the federal government. 2, corporate acquisition and shelving. All right. An inventor is offered a purchase for the patent that they accept, after which the technology simply disappears from any development pipeline. So, like, you have a piece of technology, they find out about it, they buy the rights to it, right? You can no longer talk about it. You can no longer access it. You can no longer fucking develop it. You can't tell other people how to develop it. They shelve it. It's over. Makes sense. It's probably the easiest, most economical, like, easiest way, just bribing a motherfucker. Like, that's it.
Right.
3, legal harassment. Legal harassment, civil suits, civil lawsuits, expert testimony campaigns, and criminal complaints that bankrupt the inventor before his technology can even mature. It's kind of like the people that, like how the National Enquirer were like, if you had a UFO experience in 1983, the only people that would listen to you would be the National Enquirer. And if your story gets in the National
Right.
Enquirer, do you think you have any
Yeah,
validity
you're
at all to the public?
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's basically what that is. And direct action. Number 4, direct action. Laboratory break-ins, equipment sabotage, direct threats, and in the strongest version of the claim, killings, engineered to appear as natural causes, suicides, or unrelated violent crime. Okay. Yep, makes a lot of sense. And so I won't go into he's got some great documentaries, Sirius in 2013, Unacknowledged 2017, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind 2020, and the most recent one, if you're out there, this is the one I would tell you to actually go watch, 2023, and it's called The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. And he goes into all of these energy systems and technologies and the people, and it's actually pretty damn cool. So it started with Nikola
Right.
Tesla, who died in 1943. He was Austrian, and wildly crazy educated, very, very intelligent guy. Went to Charles Ferdinand University in Prague, self-taught beyond that, received honorary doctorates from Columbia, Yale, and numerous European universities as well. He worked for Edison Machine Works in New York and founded the Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing outfit. Later partnered with George Westinghouse, inventing the alternating current induction motor and the polyphase AC system that became the global standard for electric power distribution. He held 300 patents worldwide. The free energy claim. So he had a Colorado Springs lab, bro, in 1899. Colorado Springs lab. And also another one in Long Island in 1901 to 1917. And it was aimed at wireless transmission of electric power through the earth itself and through the atmosphere. So, wireless transmission electric power through the earth itself and through the atmosphere. He publicly claimed humanity would one day attach their machinery to the very will work of nature. That's his quotes. Would one day attach their machinery to the very will work of nature. Isn't it interesting how we're finding that the pyramids have those structures that goes down like 2 kilometers now down into the earth? And
Yeah.
what we're
I
also
mean,
finding is that a lot of these really, really ancient civilizations, if you think about the really, really good megalithic structures that are way better engineered and designed than people that live thousands of years later that built mud brick on top of them, is that there seems to be ways that they're harnessing like the Earth's natural wavelengths, energy systems, water through there, um, all that stuff. It seems to be connected. Even the Beyond project, the reason they were able to find those subterranean structures was through Earth waves, through sound waves
right.
from the
Yeah.
Earth, not through actually
Yeah.
penetrating the Earth. And so, yeah, there's when it comes to plasma, the invisible shit that we don't see that is everywhere around us that creates a tremendous amount of energy into the universe. And like generating electricity that the earth would basically harness itself and then redistribute for free. Pretty
Right.
wild, man. Um,
Well, and if you think about how the earth, all the energy in the earth from how we ground all our electricity. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And then you find out that rocks actually do have special powers, like all the hippie girls who are worshiping crystals, and it comes to
it's true.
find out like
And it's
we have scientific data.
conductive rocks.
Yeah, we
Like
have science.
the pyramids and stuff, like there's more conductive, harder rocks where you could have electricity that would be able to conduct itself through like the granite. And there's a couple, like the harder the rocks are, the more conductive they seem to be. Whether you're
Right.
harnessing energy from the earth itself or from the atmosphere through lightning strike or plasma.
Right. And just like different crystals like quartz and other things like that, like what things that we actually use in our electronics now because of what they do, and that's like
Mhm.
the all these ancient like cultures who had these weird spirituality and worshipped rocks and the stars and stuff, like they were onto something,
Yeah.
and
They're
and that's
probably
and
more
that's one of
advanced
the
than we
things
are,
where
quite frankly.
and that's where I think Christianity fucked up because they hid the story, like they told their story, but there's a lot more behind it.
I don't even think it's just Christianity. I just think it's monotheistic religion
Well,
in
it's
general. You know what I mean? Like the Abrahamic
yeah,
religion.
100%.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Judaism does it,
Well,
Islam does it. Christianity is like our form that we're
any
most familiar
any
with, absolutely
major
does it.
religion,
Yeah.
any major religion, I should say,
Yeah,
any of the
100%.
founding Aaronic religions. Yep.
And so he died alone and he was basically impoverished as well when he died in the New Yorker Hotel in 1943 on January 7th at the age of 86. And immediately after his death, dude, I mean, his body was still warm. The FBI seized his papers and equipment within hours of his death under the custody of the Office of Alien Property. Literally says this, under the custody of the Office of Alien Property. This is a well documented historical fact. Well documented. I've heard this in numerous podcasts and stuff when they talk about Tesla. All right. Next guy, Henry Moray, 1974. He died in 1974. Salt Lake City, Utah. He limited formally university credentials, self-trained. He seemed like he was more self-trained in electrical engineering. We're seeing that with a lot of these people, like kind of like a lot of natural geniuses. You know what I mean? They're kind of like they go to school like
Right.
Einstein or whoever, and they're like, "Fuck this! I'm done with this. I'm gonna go build some shit."
Right.
Eventually awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Sweden, as well as some other places. The device he created, a Moray radiant energy device. Okay, that's what he called it. a solid-state apparatus consisting of a long antenna, a ground connection, another ground connection, and a series of Moiré values, end quote. An early semiconductor-like detector Maury built himself, decades before the commercial transistor existed. In demonstrations across the 1930s, the device reportedly produced up to 50,000 watts of output power, sufficient to light banks of light bulbs and run appliances. And he termed something called oscillations from the cosmos. That's where he said he got the energy from. Oscillations from the cosmos and grounded in the earth. Sounds pretty hippie to me, Joel.
Right.
There were tons of witnesses to his machine being used all over the place. They even had, I want to say Tesla showed up to one of his. I think Tesla showed up to actually one of his demonstrations. Ironically enough, which says a lot about him. Like if you got it, you think
Right.
I don't think Tesla would show up to anything I ever fucking did in my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing I've accomplished where Nikola Tesla's gonna be like, I'm gonna go check that out. I'm gonna go see what Bricker's up to over there.
But he would be listening to our podcast.
Right. That's right. That's right. I guess he'd been threatened a lot. He'd actually been shot at a bunch of times. He even returned fire. He carried a gun on him because he had been threatened enough and shot at a few times to where he started carrying a gun on him, and he returned fire multiple times apparently after multiple laboratory break-ins and sabotaging events that were recorded. Yeah. He basically never let the device see the light of day. He didn't trust the government. He died and took the technology with him when he died. Never told anybody how it worked, really. This is actually kind of common. It goes back to that. Is it monetary? Is it for monetary reasons? Is it for fuck you reasons? Just straight fuck you reasons? Like,
Right.
I will die with this before I give it to you because you've been shooting at me and threatening me for years now, and I would rather die with it than give it to you after all that.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. So this dude
Well,
died in
and
1958. Victor Schabenberger. He was Austrian, another Austrian, son of a long line foresters, attended forestry school, actually, no university degree at all of any kind, self-taught in fluid dynamics through direct observation of mountain streams and trout behavior. Mountain streams and trout behavior. How he came up with this stuff. The devices, a class of implosion machines. Okay, in his terminology, engines that generated motive force by inwardly spiraling vortex flow of water and air, rather than by outwardly expanding explosion characteristic of combustion engines, right? Combustion is just outward expansion. He's talking about an inward explosion. Specifically, designs include the repulse line, a disc-shaped device that reportedly levitated during testing based on numerous eyewitness accounts. He called them trout turbines, the various trout turbines for generating power from slow-moving water. This is really interesting. Under the Nazi regime, Schallenberger was reportedly ordered under duress in the Nazis, because remember, he's Austrian, including threats against his family, to develop an implosion-based propulsion device at Malthusian concentration camp using prison labor. So he was ordered by the Nazis under duress, again, including threats against him and his family, to develop an implosion-based propulsion device. A lot of this, remember, centers around propulsion at Malthusian concentration camp using prison labor. All the prototypes were reportedly destroyed or captured by Soviet and American forces, never to be seen again. Weird. Actually, this is interesting. So in 1958, Schaugenbauer was flown to Texas at the invitation of American businessman who promised a development contract. He signed agreements he reportedly did not fully understand. The documents were in English and he didn't speak English. Okay. He was returned to Austria having signed away rights to his work for a sum he never received. He died 5 days after returning home, reportedly saying, quote, "They took everything from me, everything. I don't even own myself."
And,
Pretty interesting. That's
and
a
he
pretty
died.
interesting one. And he worked for was forced to do it for the Nazis. And all of his shit was confiscated by the goddamn Soviets and the Americans, or destroyed.
Right.
And then they have him sign an NDA and take all of his shit, and he dies 5 days later. That guy had an interesting life, man.
Another
You know what I'm saying?
one of those conveniences.
A lot of coincidences, Joel. A lot of coincidences. Wilhelm Reich.
Coincidences. Yes.
Wilhelm Reich, 1897 to 1957. All right, academic background, University of Vienna, 1922. He actually studied under Sigmund Freud and was an early member of the Vienna I'm not even going to say it, association. That's like 27 letters in that word. Published major works in that word before turning into physical research. Psychoanalysis, something. Anyway, okay, the claim. Reich proposed the existence of orgone, a universal life energy he said he had detected experimentally, distinct from electromagnetism, separate from electromagnetism. He built what was called argon accumulators, layered metal and organic matter boxes, apparently. Claimed to concentrate this energy for therapeutic purposes, and later cloudbusters claimed to influence weather by drawing argon from the atmosphere. Apparently this stuff is in the atmosphere or something.
Yeah.
And this is an
Mostly
interesting.
gas.
So government action. In 1954, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration obtained an injunction against Reich on the basis that argon did not exist and his devices were fraudulent medical devices. Reich refused to appear in court, straight refused to go to court over this, citing his principles. In 1956, FDA agents under federal court order destroyed all of Reich's equipment and publications, included burning his books. They burned his entire library, burned it. This is one of the most overt documented acts of government-sanctioned destruction that has ever been recorded in the 20th century. Yeah, dude. And he also, check this out.
Wild.
You know how I said he didn't go to court? Refused to go to court? They put him in prison for 2 years for contempt of court. 2 years for contempt of court because he refused to go. And then they burned his library and took all of his shit while he was in prison.
Right. Well, and
hey, how many people have gone to prison for Epstein, Joel? How many people have gone to prison for Epstein again?
Yeah.
This guy was in contempt of court. It's a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. And they put him in prison for 2 fucking years?
Well, and if the claim doesn't work, it would be proven not to work. Like if someone's stacking metal in, I'm going to say dirt because it was stacks of metal and organic material. Like if that doesn't work, they're going to say you're a fucking psycho and go on your way. They're not going to arrest you and burn your laboratory down if you're doing something that is literally just stacking metal and rocks, you know? Like it's like at the worst case they prosecute you for like defrauding investors because you were trying to, but that normally comes out after an investment happens, you know? Like it's fucking crazy, dude.
It's crazy.
And you don't burn the evidence that you would use to build a trial that your technology is fake. So you'd use that evidence to
and
prove
destruction.
It.
Yeah, they sent him to prison for 2 years. Crazy. 2 years, and then burned his library and took all of his shit. God. Yeah. This is the government that we defend, and we say is not the terrorist government. You know, Iran's the terrorists. Those are the terrorists. All right, Eugene Malov. All right, academic background, MIT, 1975 in environmental health sciences, also Harvard University, Hughes Research Laboratories. He worked on manipulation on MIT's cold fusion work. Cold fusion, different than cold brew. um, he was scheduled to appear at a Coast to Coast AM the day after his death to announce specific free energy breakthrough. So he was beaten to death, bro. Beaten to death. He was 56 years old, 2004, in the driveway of his childhood home in Connecticut. He suffered 32 facial lacerations and a crushed trachea. He was beaten to death in front of his childhood home at 56 years old. He had multiple free energy breakthroughs, and he was going to appear the very next day, dude. The very next day on Coast to Coast AM to discuss his free energy breakthroughs. Beaten to death. All right, Stanley Mayer. Hang with us, people. There's a few more. I know we're 2 hours into this bitch, but hang with. If you've gone this far, you're interested. All right. Stanley Allen Mayer, water fuel cell, 1940 to 1998. No formal scientific or engineering degree. Totally self-taught, but had tons of patents. The device, the water fuel cell, patented across multiple filings in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Mayer claimed the device used pulsed, resonant, high-voltage electrolysis to spit water into hydrogen and oxygen using less input energy than the hydrogen's eventual combustion would release. A claim that would violate the first law of thermodynamics, come to find out. He mounted the system on a dune buggy and drove the vehicle to go from Los Angeles to New York on 22 gallons of water. From Los Angeles to New York on 22 gallons of water. Imagine that. Not a whole lot of oil companies making a lot of fucking money on that bitch. This is the one that said that they poisoned me. So in 1998, dying at a Cracker Barrel. Actually, there was two of them that said that because the last one was a different guy, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and I don't think it's the same name.
So this is in 1998 during a Cracker Barrel visit in Ohio with his brother, Steven, and two Belgian investors. He was there with two investors for his products. After taking a sip of cranberry juice, he ran out into the parking lot, vomited, and died. They poisoned me, were his last words.
That
couple of those, couple of guys getting poisoned and actually saying they got poisoned before they died. All right, John Searle. I'm leaving out like 4 or 5 because I know we're pretty deep into this, so I'm going to kind of just stick to some of the more interesting ones, but there's a lot of them. British, again, no university education. He was an electrician. He was actually a self-taught electrician. 1932 to 2018. The device he made, a set of nested magnetic rings with orbiting magnetic rollers, claimed to generate electricity, anti-gravity lift, and a temperature drop in the surrounding air. He claimed early prototypes built in the 1950s had levitated and flown away from their test stands. Here's the one with this was the guy for the electric meter. So in 1985, Searle was convicted and imprisoned in the UK for abstracting electricity, specifically for bypassing his home's electricity meter. He was prosecuted for that. And he fought legal powers. He was in legal battles for years and years and years because he refused to pay the state for electricity. He's like, I'm producing my own electricity. Right. Why would I fucking keep paying you guys? I'm making it myself. He went to jail. Was that one? Floyd Sweet, 1912 to 1995. He was an electrical engineer. The vacuum toroid amplifier, a small device built around conditioned barium ferrite magnets. There's a lot of this stuff with magnets too. Which Sweet claimed produced approximately 500 watts of output from milliwatts of input. He received a bunch of death threats and ended up having his stuff basically confiscated through eminent domain in patents. Where we talked about at the beginning, right? Where they go in there and they're just like, this is our patent now. If you reproduce it, you're going to prison for 20 years. No big deal. I know you made it. but it's not your shit anymore. Anyway, that's pretty much it, dude. And so, yeah, that's pretty interesting because it seems like the stuff you were talking about with Palantir in a lot of ways, kind of in a weird way, kind of like roundabout comes to some of this stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think there's some recent things that are just happening in Iran, and people will go down the conspiracy theory wormhole with this. But that the one guy who um, got murked, I don't know how, but the dude who was working with the stuff that controlled weather, with the argon and was able to control weather with it.
Mhm.
There's some speculation that there's a lot of things in the Middle East that are doing that and are like controlling the climate to make them have drought and like not good water.
Yep.
And there's some interesting reports coming out of Iran in this last 3, 4 months related directly to like I don't know if they're satellites. I'm not sure what these things are, but Iran destroying them, and then there's been some interesting weather patterns that have gone through that area. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a
They're in a
coincidence.
huge
I
drought
haven't
for years and years and years, like the entire
uh,
country. Massive
region.
drought. And down by the
Uh,
UAE, supposedly there's some like cloud seeding, satellite. There's some stuff. I don't know what exactly to call it because I'm not sure what it is exactly. But
yeah,
yeah, they blew it up just a few days ago, and they like announced it that they were going to blow up this big weather making system that was down there by the UAE, which the thing about cloud seeding in the US. We've done that before. We've done cloud seeding. We
right,
know for a fact that we've manipulated our weather. 110% we have the ability to do it. 100% we have the ability to do it. Why would we not weaponize that against our enemies? We obviously have.
right,
And so Iran blows this thing up like a few days ago, and then they post online, a whole bunch of people do. And what's happening all over Iran right now? Snow and rain. Tons of snow, tons of rain all over Iran. Like they blew this thing up, and then immediately, dude, it was immediate. Like immediately, it started snowing and raining all over Iran, like massive amounts of snow, even
right,
all over it. Like crazy recordings of people driving in Tehran and other places of Iran that are just getting pounded with snow almost immediately after them destroying whatever that device thing is down there. I mean,
right,
to think that we know, like people walking around thinking we just know everything that we do, that we're somehow an open book
right,
society. The United States is not. We are not an open republic at all. We classify everything. You can be a 22-year-old butter bar fucking lieutenant in the army that doesn't know shit about shit, and you can classify almost everything that comes on your desk. And then in order to
right,
get it unclassified, you basically have to have an act of Congress. You have a 22, 23-year-old kid that's a fucking officer that can classify how you're supposed to clean a shitter. I mean, everything gets classified these days. Everything. I mean, I saw that when I was a federal agent. I remember like I couldn't believe how much stuff these federal agents thought was important that wasn't important that they thought we weren't allowed to talk about.
right,
I was like, you guys think you're a tier one unit in fucking Pakistan right now? Like, what do you think? What are you hiding so much for? Like, you think that's going to endear you to the citizenry that you're basically classifying everything the way that military classifies everything?
right,
Like, you're not allowed, like the militarization of law enforcement. And it goes,
yeah.
well, it's not just the kits and the equipment and the rifles and the weapon systems and the way that you look. It's the way that they train and think and design as well. It's all of it. It all goes into it. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
they would be so hush hush about shit that didn't need to be hush hush about because they were fucking federal cops and they literally thought they were Navy SEALs. They thought they were like the
right,
equivalent of Navy SEALs, basically.
and yeah, and then it's just no end. Now we carry a phone that's around us or on us, 24/7. So they essentially have access to, like when it was kind of funny with like some of the COVID stuff, and they're talking about like they're putting chips in you to like track you. I was like, if you have a fucking phone, they already know what you're
Oh, yeah.
fucking doing. They don't need to do. They don't. That was a psyop to see how America would react.
And that whole
Yep,
old days about just
100%.
being able to take the battery out, remember? Take the battery out, we can have a conversation.
Yep, yep.
Because the phone's
Not
listening to everything.
anymore.
People always forget that. It's like this
Yeah.
bitch right here, this thing, even when it's turned off, people, even when this fucking thing is turned off, powered off, it still hears you. It can still record you, even when it's powered off. That's why it used to be you take the battery out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Can't take the battery out of these fucking things anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes into this, Joel. 2 hours and 15
Yeah.
minutes.
Let's get off. Let's do it.
Damn it.
This is a good one.
Yeah. All right, brother. I love you, man. I'm gonna get this sucker out in a
All
couple
right.
hours.
Take it easy, brother. Love you. Have a good day, man.